Today, I'm going to perform a thoroughly geeky songwriting analysis of the song Deacon Blues from Steely Dan's legendary 1977 album, the year I was born, Asia. This nearly 7-minute song contains what is probably the most advanced, jazz-infused chord progression of any song to breach the US Top 20. Deacon Blues peaked at 19 in the summer of 1978, and this helped drive people toward what was probably a more advanced album not full of singles than they would have bought. So here's a warning to people who don't like Steely Dan. I know there's a lot of you out there, and guess what? I used to be one of them. I didn't like him at all. My dad loves Steely Dan. Well, don't they say that's a dad rock band? Well, guess what? That was my dad's favorite band, and because he liked him, I didn't like him. But even though I got into all this advanced music, by the time I eventually analyzed them, I was like, oh, they are like super advanced, even though you can't tell because it's got that like smooth yacht rock vibe. But you listen to some of the lyrics, they are really twisted. So when you take that yacht rock on the surface thing that turns people off, and then you're like, oh, this song's about my recent girlfriend is now a prostitute on drugs, or whatever. Their song topics are very strange, and none of them are like, here's my emotions. They're just stories. So anyway, there's a lot of you that don't like Steely Dan. I would recommend you look at these chords, because whether you like it or not, these are some of the most advanced chord progressions. And if you're a songwriter and you want to learn how to advance your craft and work in more advanced chords into songs, there might not be a better example than Deacon Blues. Steely Dan, as many of you know, are famous for having the best of the best of the best musicians. And if they didn't like someone's vibe, even if they were world class, they were like, next. They would swap out people until Donald and Walter liked the sound. So in this song, they had Bernard Purdie on drums, probably the best groove drummer of all time. Guitarist Larry Carlton, legendary studio musician. I actually lived next to his mother in Southern California, as luck would have it. Walter Becker rarely plays bass from Steely Dan. Usually they have some studio musician play. Dean Parks on acoustic guitar. Pete Chrislieb on alto sax. He was like the top guy in LA at the time. Legendary Victor Feldman on the Fender electric piano, or the Rhodes. And then they have that patented Danette background vocal, which is those 3 female background singers. Then that's the sound. That's the entire band. But the quality of musicianship, for those who can appreciate it, if you listen closely, like try listening to the song and just listen to just the drums. And it's a simple beat. It won't catch you. It's nothing flashy. But the way Bernard Purdie drives that groove is insane. And then you add all these other guys on top of it, and it is just world-class musicianship. And all that would mean not as much if it wasn't a fantastic song too, and it really is. So besides that, Steely Dan, we have the fidelity. They are known for making some of the best sounding records in the world, and they went to great lengths to try to achieve that. Some people might say it's a little dry in 70s, but there is not a thing on there that's not crystal clear. People tune their high-fidelity audio systems to this album, Asia. So, say what you want. I'm a believer. This album sounds fantastic. The last thing I would say is I never understood their lyrics at all. I thought, learn to work the saxophone. It was just like, yeah, I'm so awesome. Let's just play. Turns out there's like these characters in the song, and there's this guy that's deluding himself into thinking he's this hotshot jazz musician, but he's really a nobody. So yeah, the lyrics are not what you think they are. They really are. It's like one of those, movies where everything gets pulled out from underneath you, and everything you thought was true is not, or, a lot of us, our life is like that. But anyway, let's not get into that. They have really cryptic lyrics. They really do. I didn't like this band at all. My dad loved them. I thought I liked, more advanced music than he did. And it turns out that this band is honestly one of the most advanced bands you could have as far as like chord progressions and song form and things like that. So in this video, as usual, my focus will largely be this crazy, awesome chord progression and song form, and then to a lesser degree, we'll get into the production, the lyrical themes, and stuff like that. Please join my Patreon if you like the music content I put out. That's the place to sort of become one of my students, and it really helps me grow this thing because I make like a couple dollars a month there off each person instead of 1 cent per view, like here. Let's dive right in. I already did a previous video covering the amazing, bizarre mystery of the opening chords of Deacon Blues, and I don't really need to repeat it, so I'm just going to insert that segment here, and then I'll start after that ends. But this is the beginning chord progression of Deacon Blues, and it sounds unbelievably sophisticated, but it contains a very simple secret that you wouldn't be able to tell unless you analyzed it. So here's the chords and intro here. We have C major 7, G add 2 over B. So if this is G major, a 2 is actually the same as 9, but that means you want it played in the lower octave. So add 2 over B. So the 3 is in the bass. So there's that 2, there's a 5, and there's 1. That's all the notes of G add 2. And that is also that classic Steely Dan, what they call the moo chord, which can take a bunch of different incarnations. But one of its most colorful incarnations is when you put the 3 in the bass and then do a stack of fourths here, like a McCoy Tyner jazz voicing. Steely Dan loved to use fourths, and jazz loved to use fourths because it basically contradicts the fifths of the harmonic series. So it's kind of cool for some reason that you just hit fourths. So anyway, we have C major 7, G add 2 over B, which is one version of that major moo chord they called. But I like calling it this, G add 2 over B, because it tells you exactly what it is. It's a stack of fourths with the major third here. 9, 5, 1 of G, and then there's that 3. So once again, C major 7, G add 2 over B. Then we have B flat major 9, which is like a B flat major, but with a major 7, and a 9, and a 3, and a 5. And then it does that same progression, that moo chord, F add 2 over A. Stack of fourths with A in the bass. It's such a cool open chord. I mean, I've played music for 30-some years, 35 years. Before I studied Steely Dan, I never knew this chord existed, honestly, this stack of fourths, and it sounds so freaking cool. So back to the top, C major 7, G add 2 over B, B flat major 9. It's almost like a modulation in a way. I'm not going to call it that, so we can call that 1 of C, 5 of C, flat 7 of C, and 4 of C. But now it does modulate. Look, it goes up to D major 7 and does that same sequence in D. And this one, you could leave it in D like I did up here, or it kind of goes back to C also before the rest of the intro. Hard to classify. Sometimes there's not a direct fit for key changes, and you just have to kind of, come up with your best way to intellectualize it. So now it goes up a whole step from where it started to the key of D. Does the same thing. I really want you to appreciate that moo chord. So the way you find that chord is you take any major chord and you play a stack of fourths from its 2. So the 2 of this is A, so stack of fourths. And then you put the third in the bass. So in the case of G, the third's B. B flat major 9. It goes up a whole step. Same thing. Then finally it goes to a bar of 3/4 with an E flat major 7. Adds a 6 too. You can even add a 9, something like that. E flat major for a bar of 3. And then Steely Dan is so great at incorporating that Hendrix chord. The dominant 7 sharp 9. So one more time on that whole thing, we have got in the key of C. Go up a whole step and do the same thing. Then that E flat, 6 and a 7. It's a great way to add some colors to get a 6 and a major 7 in there, and even a 9. Then that E7 sharp 9. So anyway, to figure out what's actually going on here, we're going to have to break it down to the simplest form of these chords. So that would be C major to G major to B flat major. Listen to that. You know what that is? Here's the secret. That's all it is that 80s progression they used all the time. Name it Rio and she dances on the sand. Just like the river flowing through the dusty land. I cannot believe that that's what that Deacon Blues intro really is. It's just freaking Rio to like the most colorful degree. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. That's all it is. That's the secret. You may have heard this song all your life, and I would be willing to bet that most of you, if not all of you, had no idea that that was just Rio. I mean, it would be hard to sing over it because the chords go twice as fast. Her name is Rio. Up a hole. That's pretty cool, actually. I don't know. Maybe you're not that blown away by that, but I had you. When you put something sophisticated on it, it kind of hides what's really going on under the hood, and I think that's what happened here. And I don't like this because it's complex and technical. I'm like it because it sounds good. All right, so we said the beginning is really just a simple version of a pretty common chord progression: 1, 5, flat 7, 4. But they're going to elevate that. That's what they do. There's that stack of fourths and that moo chord. Then again, stack of fourths. Then take the whole thing up a whole step. But that naturally falls back into the beginning chord. Which is why I didn't say we had to change keys. You could have said we went to D for a second and did the same chord progression, the 1, 5, flat 7, 4, and in D that would be 1, 5, flat 7, 4, but it works its way so effortlessly back to the beginning chord that I just left it. Up a whole step. Now we go to a flat 3, and this is pretty cool. But major, first of all, you don't use flat 3 very often in a major key, right? We're in C, you don't use, it's a totally outside of the key. So a lot of people get bored of major chords, and I have a feeling Donald and Walter did. So what are they looking to do? So they add more color. Jazz people would add, right, major 7 or sometimes a 6, sometimes a major 9 or a 6-9. But what happens when you get bored of all those? What you can do is drop the perfect fifth because it's in the harmonic series anyway, for those who don't know. If I strike this note, there's a harmonic series ringing that has the note, an octave up, then a perfect fifth, and it keeps going. It's actually ringing out of this note. So you can drop this note and it's still there, but you don't have to worry about it. So we want that major 7, and now we have some room over here. So you can add a 6 right next to it, and that's what they did here. And then, jazz people are going to be like, let's just do a 9 too. All right, fine, 9. That's it. No more notes though. So instead of having, a major or a major 7 or a major 6 or a major 9, we have major 9 adds 6 instead of. It just adds more color and tension. So it goes, and it puts it in a bar of 3, which is kind of progressive. 1, 2, 3, and then it stays in 3, or I put it as 6. You could have called it 3. And that's the Jimi Hendrix chord, the E7 sharp 9. What does that mean? What it means is you have a major third and a dominant 7 and a minor third, which we call a sharp 9, and that's the voicing you want right there. So here's the bass. And usually that would resolve to a minor. That E7 sharp 9. But in this case, there's no resolution. And songwriters, resolving is great, but it's also really great when you don't resolve. And you have to pick those spots of what lifts the song up. So this does this little transition between the intro and the first verse. E flat major 9 adds 6, then E7 sharp 9. And instead of resolving to A minor, it just goes to 5 of that C major we're in. This is the day of the expanding man. See that stack of fourths? F6, 9, there's the 3, the 6, and the 9. That's all you need. 13, you have this dominant 7, the 3, and the 13. It's a dominant chord, right? G13 is a dominant chord. You could put a 9, but not this time. F6, G over A, F6, 9. Then you do two dominant, end up on the D9. Then it does this thing I called the post-verse because it's different than the pre-chorus. I could have called it pre-chorus A and pre-chorus B, but I just call this the post-verse. It's kind of a weird name. F major 9. It seems like only us two. So that's 3 dominant, or it's 5 of the 6, which is A minor, and here we go. Then the magical flat 7, which I've talked about before, which is not in the key of C, but flat 7 dominant is super common. I have a whole video on that. So from the post verse, it seems like only yesterday I gaze at the grass, at gamblers, wild gamblers. Like I said, just basically goes 5-4, 5-4, but it's a sophisticated, it's not. There's been a lot of songs that have gone 5-4 but the Steely Dan is not going to play that game. They're going to do something like this. So your ear is not going to, if you just heard that, it would be like, what? I mean, I wouldn't detect it at all. So we go 5-4. This is the day of the expanding man. 5-4. F6 9. That shape is my shape. Where I used 2 dominant to stand. And that note in the stand is a 13 in that D9 chord. So Donald's on a 13. That's really cool. Then we go to that post verse. It seems like only. So it goes to 4, right? It seems like. Then 3 dominant, which is really 5 of 6, right? 6 is A minor if we're in C. So that's what it's doing there. It goes. It seems like only yes. Then it does go to that 6 today. Up to the magical flat 7. I gazed in the glass. Not in the key, but it's extremely useful and common. So I have a whole video on that. Post verse. It seems like only yesterday you gazed at the glass, at gamblers, wild gamblers, that's all in the past. So what it's doing is going to 4 on that post verse, and then 3 dominant, which serves as the 5 of 6, goes to 6, then to flat 7 dominant. Then finally 3 dominant, then it's 5. So 5 of 3 dominant. You can always go to something's 5, even temporarily. Then we do a 2-5 in A minor. At E7 sharp 9 again, and does not resolve to A minor again. It goes back to that verse. So it goes this E7 sharp 9, and then back to the verse. You call me a fool, you say it's a crazy scene. This one's for real, I already bought the dream. 9 on the voice. Dream. A13. So instead of going to the 2 dominant, which was D9 last time, he goes to A13, which is the 6 dominant, basically. So I could have said for a second I'm in the key of D, but it immediately goes back. So I'm not calling this as having any key changes, even though for a second there we're kind of in D major. So the second verse is the same thing. 5, 4, different kind of 5, different kind of 4. This is that verse 2, different this time. G major 7 over A to A13. Listen to that, look at that voicing. And Donald's notes, the 9, which is always a note that's going to work over a major chord or a dominant chord or 13 chord. Unless you had a flat 9 in there, then it wouldn't work. So we're on verse 2, and now it goes to what I call the pre-chorus, which starts similarly to that part I called the post-chorus. First 3 chords are the same. I could have called this pre-chorus A and pre-chorus B. That would have been just as fair. I don't know. I called the first one post-verse, and then I called this one pre-chorus. So useless to ask me why. Resolve to that 6 from E7. Throw a kiss. Now 5 minor and say goodbye. It almost, you know what, that G, that 5 minor though, because we were in C, right? G minor would be 5 minor. But let's not forget how related C is to F. And guess what F? The 2 of F is G minor. There it is right there. So if we do this chord progression, you almost might think we're in F for a second. Okay, so it goes. Here, throw a kiss, G minor 9, then walk down chromatically. 4. It feels like we're in F for a second, and I think that's how they justify that G minor 9, because if we were in C major, it's G7, not G minor. But they sneak in that 5 minor because this part feels like it's an F. Useless to ask me why, throw a kiss and say goodbye. Sorry. There's that mu chord to the stack of fourths, C major add 2 over E, over its 3. Such a cool chord. I'll make it this time. Then 2 dominant. I'm ready to walk that fine line. So, right leading up to the chorus there, this pre-chorus, which has a different progression, goes 4, then 3 dominant, which serves as the 5 of 6. Then we go to 6. Then we go to 5 minor. Then walk down chromatically, which you can always do. 4. World of my 1, but disguised behind an inversion and a cool vocal stack of fourths. 2 dominant. I'm ready to walk that fine line. Okay, F major 7 over G. This is essentially functioning as a dominant. It was hard to call it a dominant because I would have had to call it a 7, a 9, sus4, and then a 13. So it could have been called G9, G13 sus4, which would have showed that this really functions. If we're in C, G7 sounds like this. But if you want to spice it up, you can do G in the bass, but do F, or add an F major 7. And that's what they do here, leading up to the chorus. So really, really nice chord progression. I like how pre-chorus is connected to that thing I called post-verse, but then it diverges from the path that progression took and leads us toward that chorus that we all know. Some of us don't like it so much. Need some more coffee here. I used to not like this one. I learned to work the saxophone. But now that I know it's this guy fantasizing that he's good at saxophone and he's actually not, it just gets so much funnier. And the chord progression's great, and the groove kind of flattens out into a straight groove. So once again from the pre-chorus. So useless to ask me why. Blow a kiss in G minor 9. Say goodbye. 4. I'll make it this time. Fancy 1, 2 dominant. I'm ready to walk that fine line. Learn to wang the saxophone. I play just what I feel. Drink scotch whiskey all night long. And I'll be behind the wheel. Okay, this is cool. And this is as straight as it gets. So they end up getting into the chorus, and we're still in C, and we just go 6. E minor 7, which is 3. D minor 7, which is 2. And C major 9, which implies a major 7 too, and that's a 1. So that is the straightest. Let's look back here. Oh my God. That is the straightest chord progression they've given us. And you know what? As a songwriter, if you were going to do a really out there chord progression and then you just needed to give it to them, wouldn't it be the chorus that would do it? I would think so. So we've worked through this interesting song form of intro, verse 1, post-verse, then verse 2, then what I called pre-chorus, now finally the chorus. And that's the background singers singing. The saxophone. Ooh, I play just what I feel. Drink scotch whiskey all night long. And I'll be behind the wheel. We got a name for the winners in the world. I won a name and I lose. They call me Deacon Blues, Deacon Blues. So good. All right, so that chorus goes to a simple chord progression, and the groove changes to something more straight ahead, like a bossa type of thing. We have a simple 6, A minor 7, 3, E minor 7, 2, 1. Now it goes to flat 7, and you almost think it changes keys, but 4, 1, and now flat 5 half diminished, which I've told you before, like in God Only Knows, is a magic thing that leads to 4. So anytime you're in a key like C, you know there's a magical half diminished at the flat 5 that leads to 4. And that's the same trick as God Only Knows. It's in a lot of songs, a lot of those descending. This. Anyway, that's what happens here. So, like I said, this started really simple, but it couldn't stay there long, more than 4 bars. Flat 7. Now that mu chord. 1. Now magical flat 5 half diminished. 4. Then all this is right here is 1 to 4. I used to hear that and go, what the hell is that? My ear could not detect it, even though I'm pretty good with chords. And all this C add 2 over E, which is one of their versions of their mu chord, is really just 1 to 4. So in pop music, it's this. How many times have we heard that in pop music? But no, Steely Dan's not going to do it like that. They're going to do it like this. Instead of... they're going to go. That is gold right there. So this is a C major add 2 over E. So there's E in the bass. Then there's the 2. There's the stack of fourths, which goes 2, 5, and 1. And then F major 9 is just, it's a pretty similar voicing. Then it repeats that, and then there's a post thing I call the post chorus, which is really just 2 bars of them grooving on those first 2 normal chords. Then it goes back to the intro. But notice something, and this is absolutely brilliant. Their intro starts on C, G, B flat A. Then it goes D, C sharp, C, B. Look what they do. They go straight to D for this intro. That's wild. They call me Deacon Blues. Post chorus, Deacon Blues. Now the intro, but we start on the D, which is up the whole step. Then that E flat major chord, add the 6. Then the Hendrix chord. It's got a major third and a minor third in it with that dominant 7. E7 sharp 9, which here you can see my arrangement says to top. I didn't want people to get confused because there is this repeat in the chorus, but that happens every time you do the chorus. So we go back to, and I wrote this wrong, and to top, I wrote it wrong because I meant to say to the verse. So go back to the verse right there. Sorry about that. Jeez, bad writing. And I even proofread this, man. Something slipped through the cracks. So pretty unique song form so far. Pay attention because song form is so important to songwriting, and that's one of the things that's greatly lacking. We have this very colorful chord chorus with an odd time transition couple bars, 3-4 and then 6-4. Could have thought of that as 3 bars of 3-4. Then it goes to the verse, got some very advanced chord progressions. That's pretty straightforward. Then there's what I called the post verse. Then it goes back to verse 2, which is the same as verse 1, except that it ends with a different chord. So that's why I called it verse 2. Then what I called pre-chorus, which is similar to post-verse, but then it diverges after the 3rd chord. That leads nicely into the chorus, the very straight-ahead chords for the first 4 bars, and then it goes into that really elevated thing that I'd gone over here with that minor 7 flat 5 from the flat 5 of C, and then a post chorus of 2 bars, which is the same 2 chords as the chorus intro. So just kind of a mellow. And then it goes, this is so brilliant, it goes back to what I call intro 2, but instead of starting on C, they started up a half step and just climb down quickly. They rush it, or instead of 6 bars, it's just 4 bars this time. Then it says to top, and what I really meant there was to verse 1. Bad copyist. Then you do the same thing. I'm not going to go over it again. Different lyrics. We'll go over lyrics later. Goes to the chorus again and the post-chorus, and all you do this time is after this chorus, the second time you take the second ending. So that's pretty simple and easy to understand, and that's a little different. So the intro 2 is, and instead of E flat major 9, B flat 13, going into the solo, and then that mu chord. It's cool, and all he's really doing, because if you see the solo is going to start on C major 7. So really all he's doing is finding a way to go bow, bow. And we needed something new, I guess. So from that intro 2, let's do something we haven't done yet. And then that leads to... So then we get to the sax solo, Pete Chrislieb. I hear he was like the Tonight Show guy. He was like the best guy in LA at the time. Takes like a tear the roof off the place sax solo that, yeah, just incredible. But I don't like it again. And so this is a solo section, and we're still in C, and we're hinting at some things that have happened during the song, but there's a lot of novel ideas in this little, interesting, it's a 10-bar progression. So what we have is we start in C, which is pretty rare for this song, right? I guess we started the song in C, but we haven't had much of a feeling of a key center, right? Most of us are used to these pop music that has very clear key centers, and we cannot say this has given us much to hang our hat on about hearing where we are. It's not for me. I had to analyze it to be like, oh, this is in C. Like, it didn't sound like it was in anything. So we get the sax solo, and there's these other horns that are doing these voicings of some kind of horn arrangement. 1-3. Then we get 6 dominant. 2 dominant with that Hendrix chord, that dominant 7 sharp 9. So that's pretty cool. C major 7. A13, which is a dominant chord. D7 sharp 9. G13, B7 sharp 9 sharp 5, back to 3, which is a 2-5 of 2, right? This A13 is 5 of 2, so that E minor 7 is really just a 2-5 of 2. I didn't claim we changed keys, I just called it 3 to 6 dominant. And then there's this little 2-bar turnaround, which has this strange chord progression that I think hints at the intro to their song Josie, if I'm not mistaken. F major 9, F sharp 7 sharp 9, G major 9 add 6, which is B7 sharp 9 sharp 5. Very advanced. So anyway, then that whole thing repeats, and there's this like horn part, and then the alto solos, and then a horn response, then the alto solos kind of in between it. So and that E minor to A, it was really a 2-5 in D, right? But I'm calling this whole thing in C, like I said. But whenever you see a 2-5, such as E minor to A, that is 2-5 in D. But by the time we resolve to D, it's already D7. So we're using these as subdominants, which is really the reason I'm calling this whole thing in C. 3. G13, 5, B7 sharp 9, 3, A13, now the turnaround. So it does that twice, and then finally it empties back out into the intro, but this time from the same that it's at the beginning. And it's kind of quieter too. And the way that it falls into it is really, really, I mean, these musicians are just fantastic. So it's the same intro, except it doesn't do the progressive bars. That really makes me curious why they didn't do that. Whoops, I messed that one up. It just goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 this time. It just did those bars of 3 and 6 at the first intro. So I would have expected it to come back here. And who knows? It's interesting. There's like, we just want one bar of 3/4 in this song, and that's it. So anyway, you see me write a line. I didn't want to write it out again. Play from verse 2 through intro 2, which is that thing after the chorus, and then that dumps out into this outro. So I don't need to do that again. So it doesn't go to verse 1. This is a great trick. Remember this, writers? When you have a long song, you have maybe a long verse and then chorus, then another long verse, then you go to some solo. When you come back, make it the second half of the verse. So it could be the first half, but shorten that verse by half, and it really pulls the listener's ear toward that last chorus. Otherwise, you run the risk of really getting boring there, and this is a long song already. So this was brilliant to come out of that solo and that intro 3 into verse 2 instead of verse 1. So we're going to go just from there, and there's nothing different. This is the night of the expanding man. I take one last drag as I approach the stand. I cried when I wrote this song. Sue me if I play too long. This brother is free. I'll be what I want to be. So anyway, nothing different there. Goes from the verse 2, then straight to that pre-chorus, then to the chorus. Nothing different there. And what we're going to end up doing is, after this intro 2, we're going to go straight to this outro. So intro 2 was just that thing that has the intro from up a whole step. And it does that. And it goes to this sort of instrumental outro with these horn parts that hit these, different inversions. So it's similar to the verse. It's very similar to the verse, but there's some different extensions. So I put them in, even though the rhythm players, I would bet are not playing those extensions. I bet it's more in the horn section. I put them in anyway. That F13 sharp 11. So this outro, it's very similar to the verse. It's the same basic chords, but there's some different extensions that I think are less in the rhythm section and more in the horn section. And it shows you the power of dominant chords. You can put a bunch of extensions and the rhythm players don't have to change. In fact, if the rhythm players did suddenly change, the pianos and the electric pianos and the rhythm guitars, it probably wouldn't sound as cool with the tension that those horns are giving. But I kind of made my chords reflect the voicings I was hearing in the horns. The outro. So that's a dominant, a 13 sharp 11. There's the sharp G13. And now we have D9 sharp 11. There's the 3, there's the 1. Then we go to that post verse 4. E7 flat 9 sharp 5. So that's then A minor 9, B flat 13 9, 3 dominant, then it's 5. Now a 2 5 and 6, which is A minor. E7 sharp 9, then it just repeats, doesn't resolve to A minor. So it's really the same as half of the verse and then just repeating it, but I did add that F13 sharp 11, which is just the chords I hear the horn voicings, accenting. So it does a long fade out with this real amazing groove, and let me just point out a couple other things in this song you can listen to. Like I said, Bernard Purdie, probably the greatest groove drummer of all time. You could listen to this whole song and you will hear the essence of what a good studio drumming take is. And this is one take. I mean, they would practice all day, but the takes they used, I think, were most likely one take. Then listen to the bass playing, which is Walter Becker, and there's a cool interview you can find about the Asia documentary where they talk about this song, and Walter says the groove was so good from Bernard Purdie that he didn't feel the need to have the bass moving. So in the verse, he's just floating along, and it doesn't assume a more normal rhythm until the sort of bossa nova-ish type thing in the chorus. Doom, doom. Before that, he's just floating on top as the bass, and it really has a cool effect because that drummer is really driving the beat, and Walter was 100% right. There was no need to further accentuate the movement. There's Larry Carlton on guitar, he's doing tasty licks between stuff the entire time. He's going between licks and chord voicings, but this was the guy that wrote out the charts and gave them to the other musicians, so he understood these chord structures better than anybody. And I will say something, you see me say major 9 a lot. A lot of times I wonder if in the charts they had it as major 7. Jazz people will a lot of times add a 9. So when I'm transcribed this and I hear 9, I don't know if a guy was taking the liberty and putting a 9 or if it's in their chart. Because sometimes I bet the charts look a little simpler than some of the chords this might have just said E7 right here, E7 flat 9, all that stuff. And the electric pianist might have just known to make it something else. But I wanted to have it exactly what it is because it sounds to me like a composition, even if they were improvising to a degree. Electric piano is playing really tasty through this. The horn parts are really cool. They said they didn't want to use like a high-endy trumpet, so it's all mid-section horns. I think like tenor and alto saxophone. There might be some trombone in there, but there's nothing high and blaring, so it has this really mellow, funky vibe that you don't get when you get that blaring horn section. There, if you listen to the acoustic guitar in the verse, and it is going the whole song, it is rock solid. And on these chords, man, if you gave this to your average hippie campfire acoustic guitarist, do you think he could play these chords? So Dean Parks, talk about a great acoustic guitar part that drives a song. It is absolutely fantastic. So back when I never liked this band, I used to get taken to their concerts in the 90s. My dad would take me, and I would kind of like suffer through them and try not to like it, even though I wish I could go back and love it because I like it now. I never made one attempt to understand what their lyrics about, and people had told me, there had been whispers that their lyrics were really odd in a way. I don't know how to say it, but sometimes you don't get something and you're just like putting up your little intellectual defensive wall of why you don't like that thing. And then it turns out you were wrong. I don't know. I've been wrong all the time. And so we shouldn't think we're right all the time, but sometimes we just don't get it. It's not, if we write it off quickly, we might have missed something. It might have been beyond us. And this was the case with Steely Dan and me. I spent years and years actively disliking it. But I never made one attempt in those days to think that the lyrics were something subversive or playing a character that is just really something wild. So I'm not claiming to be, to interpret their lyrics is a hard thing, and it's very cryptic, and you can come up with multiple definitions and multiple ways to get from one place to the other that makes sense. So I'm just giving you my take on them, and they have spoken about these in interviews. They said this song is as autobiographical as it gets. Most of their songs are literally just characters and like sick characters. Like my recent ex-girlfriend is now a prostitute on drugs, or they will play some real sick characters that honestly today would probably get canceled. They have a song about a pedophile from the pedophile's perspective in the 1970s. It's called Everyone's at the Movies. It's pretty twisted, man, honestly. But they always played these shady characters that were these down and out on the outskirts, involved in drugs or money or any of the above. And they don't have many normal songs at all. Like here, most bands, it's like, here's my emotions, here's how I feel about this. It's just character. So this one, they get semi-autobiographical about their, unlikely ascent into, how did these guys become famous writing these weird songs? But is very unlikely, and only in the 70s could this band have become as popular as they are, just based on these two guys, Donald and Walter, who are songwriting partners. But they wanted to portray, I think, an unlikely hero, a suburban person who has this fantasy, in this case of like being a jazz cat. So this is the day of the expanding man. I'm going to become something else. It's like an Incredible Hulk type of thing. That shape is my shade, there where I used to stand. That's a cryptic one. The person he used to be and the person he's going to become, maybe. It seems like only yesterday I gazed through the glass at ramblers, wild gamblers. That's all in the past. So he goes up to a window of a jazz club and everyone's smoking and drinking and having a wild time. So he went and observed that from the outside, He looked at the Ramblers, the Wild Gamblers, but that's all in the past because now I'm going to really do it. So this is a cool, I hate when you have like literal, I made it, went up from nothing to become something. These guys put it into a story, their little unlikely ascent into the pop rock world, even though they play jazz. They really do play jazz. If you listen to their chords, they play jazz. So you call me a fool, you say it's a crazy scene. I don't know if that's his friends talking to him or his parents. You'll never make it in there. And then he says, this one's for real, I already bought the dream. So useless to ask me why, throw a kiss and say goodbye. I'll make it this time. I'm ready to cross that fine line. Okay, all pretty self-explanatory, but leave some stuff to the imagination. I'll learn to work the saxophone. I play just what I feel. Drink scotch whiskey all night long. And die behind the wheel. Oh my gosh, so it's so subversive. I'll learn to work the saxophone. You come to realize that this fantasy, this guy doesn't even know how to play anything. This guy's just delusional at this point. He does not even really play at all. So he's just having this fantasy of he's going to cross that line, become a hip jazz saxophone on the circuit and be drinking all night and die in a car accident. I mean, they're like romanticizing the rock and roll thing. I mean, to have this glorious chord progression say, and die behind the wheel, drink scotch whiskey all night long, and die behind the wheel. We got a name for the winners in the world. I want a name when I lose. This guy's he's just proclaiming a lot of stuff. I want a name when I lose. They call Alabama the Crimson Tide. What a great lyric. If they can call, I mean, think about that phrase, the Crimson Tide. It's like red blood rolling in and, inundating you and killing you. It's a very mythological type of name. So he said if a football team, they were talking about if a football team could have an amazing name like the Crimson Tide, then I can give my new jazz self a name too. They call me Deacon Blues. And they said they got that name from a football player, I think in the 80s or the 70s, probably Deacon Jones. And it's a cool name. You hear that name, Deacon Blues, and it asks you, like, what does that mean? Does it mean like a church deacon? No, it's like just the name, Deacon. His name's Deacon Blues. So if they can call Alabama the Crimson Tide, they call me Deacon Blues. So pretty cool lyrics, man. I like this little character they've painted, this delusional. And then, go through them real quick. My back to the wall, a victim of laughing chance. Not sure. This is for me the essence of true romance. Only thing I don't like about this song is all the rhyming. Every song rhymes. 99% of songs rhyme, but real poetry doesn't rhyme. But I can't hold that against music because I would have to discard everything just based on rhyming. So that's the only thing I get a little annoyed with is all the rhyming. But these lyrics are just fantastic otherwise. Sharing the things we know and love with those of my kind, the little cliques of musicians playing libations, sensations which stagger the mind. It's clearly drinking and drugs and everything to do with it. Libations, sensations which stagger the mind. I crawl like a viper through these suburban streets. So now all those libations and sensations have given him this confidence of, I own these streets. Make love to these women, languid and bittersweet. I'll rise when the sun goes down, just romanticizing that late night rock and roll, in this case jazz lifestyle, which are not totally dissimilar. Cover every game in town. He's going to go play at every bar. A world of my own. I'll make it my home sweet home. Same thing. I'll learn to work the saxophone. Nothing new there. Last verse, after all those solos, this is the night of the expanding man. So instead of the day, which was before, this is the night. I love it when a first verse connects to a third verse with a lyric. It's write that one on the wall, because if you're writing 3 verses, if you make that the beginning of the third verse connect to the first one, but he doesn't say this is the day, he says this is the night. So since he rises since he goes to sleep when the sun goes down, this night is his day. So he's finally doing it. Before it was just a fantasy. I think he's actually doing it now. This is the night of the expanding man. I take one last drag as I approach the stand. He's so cool, smoking that cigarette, or it's a joint or something. I cried when I wrote this song. Sue me if I play too long. This brother is free. I'll be what I want to be. Almost sounds like I'll do whatever I want, Mom and Dad. But yeah, it's just this delusional fantasy. I think it's a fantastic set of lyrics, and I must have heard this song 20 or 30 times and never once questioned, what is that about? Learn to work the saxophone. I thought it was literally glorifying, like, play the saxophone. Like, I don't know. I thought it was like some cheesy like anthem about like playing the saxophone, but instead it's a delusional dude who totally wants to just get into a debaucherous lifestyle as a pure suburban fantasy. I hate having to advertise to you, so let me make this quick. I could really use your help to grow this channel. Between my full-time job as an ER nurse and being a husband and father of 2 kids, it is very hard for me to find the time to make content for this channel. Many of my videos take 10 or 20 hours to create. For those of you who are really getting a lot out of my lessons, here is how you can help me out. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and that the notification bell is set to all notifications for my channel. I think only 10% of you have that clicked now. You can watch more of my videos by browsing through the playlist section of my channel to find the videos that most interest you. But the very best way you can help me is to subscribe to my Patreon music school called High Castle Conservatory. YouTube pays me about 1 cent per view, but on Patreon you can decide to give me $3.50 a month or $7 or $15 or more, whatever you feel you're getting out of my lessons. The more support that I get on Patreon, the more time I have to devote to making unique music education content for you. At this point, I have not abbreviated my videos here on YouTube or put my full videos behind a paywall, and by joining my Patreon, you help me in the most direct way possible. If you have found yourself really enjoying my lessons, then please come join High Castle Conservatory on Patreon. Lastly, please consider buying my original music projects I.S.S. and High Castle Tele Orchestra on Bandcamp. You can find the details and links in the description below.